Did you know it can be 15 times more expensive to fix a defect during testing than during design? This is a study from Deloitte, and the same thing can happen when thinking about your Power BI and Fabric needs. Hi, I'm Peter Hayden, and I help organisations with data analytics and AI. And one of these common things we see, and my team sees, is problems later on that could have been fixed well within doing the right design early on to understand how things need to hang together and get the right outcome for the business. So I'm going to take a few moments to talk about the importance of setting requirements early on, particularly things like Power BI reports. So it's important to define requirements early on in a project for a number of reasons. First is making sure you have alignment with the business needs to the deliverable you're producing out of this analytics project. And by having those requirements, it helps minimize any misaligned outcomes, saves rework and wasted resources on building things that weren't a priority or maybe weren't even needed. It also helps reduce the risk of unexpected issues and miscommunication. There's nothing worse than not getting that clearly defined up front, and then when you go to produce something and show a stakeholder that it wasn't what they imagined or expected, because we didn't do enough early on in design to make sure that those expectations were met. And it helps then set, by doing the right design, right requirements gathering up front, it's a solid foundation and successful project delivery outcome. So a couple of the key elements you want to consider when building your requirements for your report in Power BI is to think about end user needs. So who will be using the reports? Think about their skill level, think about their business domain, and what they need to be able to see and action from that. The next thing to think about is the data sources. You need to be able to identify those sources and be able to document all the required data inputs required to then build on that, to build your data model, to build then the reports on top of that. What are some of the visualization goals? Some of the key requirements. What types of insights are they looking to see? What dashboards do they need? How does it need to be represented? Are they industry standards, current ways they're doing things, or does it need to be totally reimagined? Lastly, what are the overall desired outcomes? Clarify what success looks like for stakeholders, make it as visual as possible. Things like wireframes are a great way of doing that, so they have the ability to provide input and be part of that design process. So well-defined requirements benefit Power BI projects in a couple of ways. We've talked about some of that already, but let's just recap some of those. Well, first of all, not only does it help with the outcomes, also streamlines development and reduces project rework. By having that clearly set, then you can optimize the development time properly, rather than a lot of assumptions being made and guesses being made to fill in the blanks. Secondly, it helps to deliver actionable insights and get those right sort of analytics assets that are required to build that final outcome, because you define those up front. That's really clear for all stakeholders, not the business stakeholders, and the technical stakeholders as well, building these outcomes. It improves project timelines, helps you stay within budget, and achieves the end user satisfaction. And what it can do when you do it done well is creates a clear reference for project handovers and sets the tone then for ongoing further work, for building that success, for more successful outcomes with your analytics projects. So a requirements checklist in Power BI projects, all of IT projects, is really critical to getting consistent outcomes longer term, and to then build on creating more success from that. Reports and Power BI is not a one-time event. In fact, it's usually multifaceted across lots of data domains in an organization and continues to evolve as business needs evolve. And having a requirements checklist helps with that. It captures those critical details we've talked about, like the user needs, data sources, and the visualization outcomes that are being sought, and really helps capture and align everything as business outcomes really from the outset in a consistent way by having a process requirements gathering process to articulate the goals and the vision and those outcomes that are needed. So I certainly encourage you to put together a Power BI requirements guide, and this is useful during your planning phase. And having a requirements guide provides the right templates and best practices for organising your requirements. It can help streamline the communication among the stakeholders so you know what you need to ask for up front and not to get too much back and forth, and it helps then the team focus on capturing those essential details needed for the project. And what that does is lays that groundwork for delivering impactful analytics solutions. If you'd like to know more about what's some of these other tips that might help me be successful, I encourage you to check out the ebook on my website. The link is in the description below for our top 5 essentials for transforming your analytics program. And having a Power BI requirements guide is one of those that you can think about early on to set you up for success.